Hello, University of Sussex, it's Aissata and you're watching UniTV. Today we are here outside Fulton A, where the Rhodes Must Fall campaigners are here, all the way from Oxford University to present their movement and explain us why is it so important that Cecil Rhodes' statues at Oxford University must be shut down. So let's check it out.
One of the things we challenge in our curriculums in South African universities as well as in Oxford is precisely the problem, and it can be dealt with not necessarily by the entire process of decolonization, which I think ought to be about deconstructing the knowledge that we have now, but also constructing a knowledge that we will say is decolonial, and which must always be open, and which must always be rigorous, so that it isn't once again the kind of knowledge that's privileged and static and unreflective that we have now.
Once again, we're saying, you know what, we're sticking to the term decolonization. We're not going to accept the term diversity without decolonization because you are refusing to acknowledge the problem. And this would then the problem will continue.
It's just that people are terrorized, into having to accept that this is the only way to go, right? And a lot of people know it does not make sense, right? So people are in resistance. That's something that we must understand.
Hi, I'm here with Ati and Tadiwa. They are both from Oxford University and one of the campaigners of the Rhodes Must Fall campaign. So Hati, can you tell me what are the roots of the Rhodes Must Fall movement and how did it all started?
The Rhodes Must Fall movement started in South Africa at the University of Cape Town as a campaign to have the statue of Cecil John Rhodes removed from the stairs of the university, but more broadly as a campaign to decolonize the education in that campus, with issues of representation of people of color, particularly Black South Africans in the academy, access for poor Black students, and the broader issues that have been taken up as well by Rhodes Must Fall Oxford that pertain to decolonizing the education and giving greater access.
And so now, what will the next move be for this campaign?
Ever since the decision Oriel took to not take the statue down, we are going to double up on our efforts. So we've decided to kind of really take action in terms of curriculum and representation, make our demands known, really put pressure on the university to see what their next steps are for next year, as well as saying this decision shows the problem with the very relationship we have with the university, where they do not take into account what the students feel like, where money talks more than, the people that you're saying it's a place of knowledge production, but what does that even entail or mean?
There's a distinction between political bamboozling of the project of decolonizing and actual decolonizing. It's kind of like the quasi-mystification of what is a clear project that people like Nigel Bigger try to do, which is that if you want your heroes pure, you'll never have any. But it's clear that someone like Cecil John Rhodes is not a hero. There are heroes, and then there are villainous murderers. There is no gray area, this new thing of everything must be complicated. There is no gray area.
Do you think that the removal of the statues would really change something for the campus and your life at the University of Oxford?
Absolutely. Like we've said before, the presence of that statue in the position that it sits right now on the high at Oxford University says something about the way that university chooses to configure itself, imagine itself, and the values that it espouses more broadly. So the removal of the statue will definitely change something, and it will say something about what the university is prepared to do and how the university is prepared to engage those students that have not been part of its historical context. But also, it will say something about Oxford and the way that it positions itself towards engaging its history and its complicity in the colonial project. More than that, though, it will demonstrate the seriousness of the university towards taking into real considerations the things we talk more broadly about, and that are the essence of our movement. It will say something for the university's preparation to engage the curriculum and decolonize it. It will say something about the university being more vigilant about the intake of people of color, and particularly the black students in the university, and for having representation of people of color, of black people in the university, in, for example, the African Studies unit, which at present doesn't have any black Africans teaching there, or naming an institute the Oriental Studies Institute and things like that. So the statue is emblematic of all of the things that we talk about, but it will say something about the university's seriousness towards espousing the values it says it does, of openness, of inclusion, and of creating an environment where everyone can feel welcome. We don't think that's our kind of environment when they hold a statue of Cecil John Rhodes, a mass murderer of African people, on High Street and on a pedestal.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
If you really want to progress our way, right, you've got to accept this. But the vast majority of people can't even accept that, because, you know, that is not the knowledge they have. Huge numbers of people are not educated Eurocentrically.
What a decolonized education looks like can only take place when we have the buy-in and when we've opened up the academic space to that kind of interrogation and to that level of contribution. So until we confront and struggle against particular forms of coloniality, particularly in the academic space, we aren't able to do all of the long and necessarily inclusive work of constructing what a decolonial world looks like.
And I think it's extremely important to focus on that struggle and point to what are we trying to run away from? What is it that we're trying to decolonize? I think it's extremely centrally important to do that. But at the same time, I think we need to ask, what are we running into? Where are we going?